This is a Armageddon Elementalist, and it's been working out pretty okay so far. Armageddon Brand is like a lot stronger than I initially anticipated it's going to be. I thought that it's going to be good, but I thought also that it's going to struggle with single target. But it's not really having any of these sort of problems. And do keep in mind that this is also an SSF, so our gear is like significantly worse than what you could get. It's like a total ladder start. Basically my first character, not really. Because I had another one that died to a bug that was also the same build, but yeah, we died to a bug. So, and yeah, there's no need for like a separate single target or anything like that, which I was dreading the most. That's the thing that I thought is going to be the biggest problem. It's also the main reason why we went for Elementalist and not something like a Trickster or Hierophant, because a lot of people are always talking about how Hierophant is like the thing to do, and then Trickster is definitely the thing to do. This is a build that mixes and matches on hit damage and damage over time, but if you've ever played a damage over time build, it's basically impossible to really build a full-blown damage over time build right now. A full-blown ignite build, sorry to be specific, without like really bizarro gear, and obviously on SSF we just don't have that sort of stuff available. And so Elementalist is, in my opinion, always the best choice, because the other builds do still struggle with those deeps, while we don't, because we can shock, we can chill, we can utilize hypothermia, which is like a super duper useful gem. And also on top of it, we can obviously equip something like a carcass jack that we managed to 6-link, but eventually this will become a impulsa, which is super useful in Betrayal because it prevents you from getting shocked, and a lot of the things that I've seen is just people dying to shocks, like pretty much non-stop. The skill tree is, I think, as standard as it gets, honestly. I was initially anticipating that I'm going to be picking up the minion nodes, so these nodes and these nodes and these nodes, pathing out through here rather than through here. But honestly, I don't need the damage. If you want a little bit more utility, maybe with the attack speed for your Fortify with Consecrated Path, then you can totally do that, but I don't think that's really necessary. And in terms of building for like cast speed, maybe if you want a more aggressive skill tree, you can see that the build pretty much clears in like lightning speeds. It just takes you no time to cast. Frequently I'll double cast, and then the activation itself just takes no time either. I think when I'm fully buffed, it's something like 0.20, I think it's like 0.18 activation frequency and like 0.22 to cast it. So it's just really ridiculous. And do keep in mind that this is obviously with a faster casting, but I think I really underestimated that for the longest time, because faster casting was my 6-link. And I'm pretty sure that I should have been using it instead of burning damage, because we already had... Ooh, nice rip. We already had more than enough damage before. The hypothermia is worth it when it matters the most, but in your overall clear, it'll be... It'll sometimes feel like a wasted spot, but like really when it matters, when you need to dish out the most damage, hypothermia always comes through, and it's by far the best support. So mix and match those. Obviously you can utilize something like Deadly Ailments, but do keep in mind that most likely you're sacrificing like 40% more on hit damage, and so that rarely really is worth it outside of the leveling stages where Ignite does pull its weight and you can totally kill bosses. So yeah, the final setup that I'm on so far is Armageddon Brand, Immolate, Hypothermia, Combustion, Burning Damage, and Faster Casting. I might switch up the Burning Damage for maybe something like an Efficacy in the future. It really depends. I'm only now entering red maps, so that might change, but it also might not. Obviously, also we were using Vol Righteous Fire for single target purposes, but I kind of don't need it, honestly. When I was playing Incinerated Ignite, I felt like I really needed it, but with this build, so far, I just kind of kill everything. I don't really need to use it. I do use it because, you know, it makes you kill a boss half a second faster, but it's absolutely not necessary. What is necessary, however, is that you focus on your brand levels and your brand quality, which I do not have. So you can't see that in the use. But if you were to get an Empower and, for instance, like a level 7 brand from a Volorb and with quality, I think it makes for like 100% attachment range or something, and like 70% reduced cooldown, so you can always just nuke things. And that really makes the big difference for the single target, because obviously you can only have 2 brands attached to an enemy, and you're just rotating those. But since we have 5 brands total, we can always just cast 5 brands, use our recall, and that way we're gonna attack with all 5 rather than just attacking with the 2. And the other ones recharge instantly, so it doesn't really make a difference for the 2. It just adds 3 into our rotation, and again, you can get the cooldown to be super duper low, and that's the majority where the single target comes from. And it also makes for like just a really fucking sick playstyle too, because yeah, you can like do a bunch of damage and have this like trickling damage over time type of situation, but then when you really want to fucking hurt something, you pop your recall, and rarely ever does anything really live through it. And again, this is with faster casting that doesn't benefit this sort of playstyle at all. So it's just incredibly rewarding, super fun. Armageddon Brand, absolutely, so far exceeding my expectations. Oh yeah, and make sure to get Leech, because it adds a lot of survivability. That's the one thing that I am a little bit surprised about, which is that, I mean, it's also the difficulty of the league itself, and obviously the limitations of SSF, but this character has been pretty tricky to gear. Not because it needs any special gear in particular. I mean, it's a basic MOM build. The crafting is ridiculous now. You can craft mana on anything that you want. You can craft really large amounts of movement speed, of life, or hybrid, of fire damage, just anywhere, cast speed, you name it. But somehow, just so you can keep up with the damage, if you don't have like a 5-link available, if you're not leveling with a Tabula, you're probably going to be picking up more damage nodes than I initially anticipated, or you should be building on hit early on. So that's been something that I've been a little bit surprised about, because one of the biggest choices for why I ended up going with Armageddon Brand for my league starter instead of what I initially planned, which was most likely like an occultist, or you know, some sort of Arctic Breath occultist or Cold Snap occultist, Vortex occultist, some slow damage over time type of thing that does a lot of damage, but it's kind of slow in the way it casts, which I don't like, which was part of the reason why I didn't choose it. But the biggest reason was because it's just very difficult to gear for SSF, you know, because you have to play Eldritch Battery to really have like a good hybrid period, right? Because you can't really pick up enough life nodes, so you have to go MOM, but you're a cultist, so you need to pick up curses. So that's really where ED comes in. But then you have to build life ES gear, and then you have to transition from that to a pure ES gear build. And it just takes way too long, and it takes away too much time to be racing to 100. And the end outcome just doesn't justify it. It's not like an Isla RF build where you very slowly go there. This would be a little bit faster, but then once you would switch to CI, the things would be just safer, right? You wouldn't have that like big speed up like an Isla RF build does. So yeah. And also again, the cast time is, I don't like slow abilities, and with Armageddon Brand, 99% of the time you're just casting way too much. Like the cast speed is so much fun that you're casting way too much, especially with like a super fast flame dash. It's really fun. You often forget to keep up your fortify, at least I do. And yeah, it's a lot of buttons. It's really what I look for in these sort of characters. Oh yeah, one more thing. I leveled with Frost Bomb and Explosive Trap into Stormbrand. That wasn't particularly great, but Stormbrand and Explosive Trap were good enough. Explosive Trap's obviously great, but Stormbrand was basically comparable with Frostbomb, but a little bit worse. But I just really didn't want to level with Blade Vortex. But if you want to, you can level with Blade Vortex. And then I switched from the Stormbrand after I've rushed to the Runebinder node at 31, because you get a lot of good gems like increased burning damage and whatnot, at 31 for Armageddon Brand, which you get at 28. And I pretty much leveled with it since then. Initially, I did have some single target problems for like the first 3 to 5 levels, I don't know, until like 35, but then I got rid of my single target explosive trap and I just fully committed to the Armageddon brands, and it was pretty ridiculous. And do keep in mind that that was on a 4 link while using deadly ailments, which lowers your single target, which was the only thing keeping me kind of behind. So yeah, Armageddon Brand, highly recommend, check it out.